Welcome back to the channel. So this video comes about as a result of a couple of things. First one is that I'm actually getting a chance to use it as an excuse to try out a new microphone that I picked up. I grabbed one of those Rode pod mic things. I don't know if I'm going to make use of it during the live stream or anything like that, but I just occasionally when I want to do a video like this, I just thought it would be fun to have maybe a potential upgrade. That is yet to be determined because I have to try it obviously and see how this sounds. So, let me know any feedback if this sounds different at all or if it sounds exactly the same or better or worse or whatever the case may be. I may have to play around with some settings on this. It connects with USB, so that probably should be good enough. But anyway, so as an excuse to use that. But the other thing is that I came across this a little bit earlier on social media and we briefly joked about it on the Discord. But I kind of figured I wanted to make a video about it because it did lead me down a different thought. So the article here is talking about Yahoo Sports launching a new home for comprehensive collectibles coverage. Now, I can hear you audibly rolling your eyes from the distance, but stick with me on this because I actually want to pose a question to you as well as a result of this, because this kind of stuff does interest me, not necessarily because it's going to be a hub, but it does lead me down the path of almost kind of a breaking the fourth wall, kind of a self-reflective thing, because a lot of the stuff that I'll do on the channel when I do more of a talking kind of screen sharing kind of video like this is one of those things where it does lead me down the thought of, I wonder how useful this is going to end up being. As a bit of a giveaway on this, there's one angle on it that I'll briefly touch on it and just let you know. It really is, there's no harm to it because I don't think it's going to affect too many people. I think it's mostly a nothing burger. But the reason I want to talk about it is actually just a thought that I had based on maybe the changing way that we absorb information inside of the hobby. And that's for people that are interested in kind of the newsy side of things. People that obviously are not interested in it, it's not going to make any difference to you one way or the other. But I did get a kick out of it. One of the reasons, though, that I found it funny on top of everything else is that Yahoo Sports, of all things. And, obviously, when you think about it, if you've been on the internet long enough, you do remember the Yahoo brand and what it once was. And the first thought that I had when I was looking at this, and I just thought it was very entertaining, because Sports Card Investor is one of the ones who was kind of bragging about this and so excited about it. And I understand why. That's why I said a moment ago, I don't think there's any harm in it. And it certainly doesn't harm them, regardless of what the agreement is or whatever they have going along with this. I can see why they would agree to it, and it makes all the sense in the world. But the reason I thought it was very amusing is because, getting excited over being put on a Yahoo homepage, which I'll show you in a second, is kind of the equivalent of being excited about having your brand new GeoCities page. Let's go back to 1995. I'll let everybody know on the Usenet group, and maybe we'll add it to my MySpace top 8. Basically a lot of antiquated things that no longer are really a thing on the internet. But again, if you've been around long enough on the internet, then you'll kind of remember some of those references. They're not all necessarily from the same year or time period, though. Although MySpace is obviously gone. GeoCities I miss kind of a little bit. I do remember some early websites on that. But that's kind of a 1995 reference, 96 reference. But when I think of Yahoo, that's where my brain goes. My brain goes to the mid-90s, even into the late 90s a little bit. But by the late 90s, things were starting to shift already. I was, onto Alta Vista and some other things that, again, dated reference based on your time. But bring it back to the article, though. What makes it interesting to me isn't even what they're doing with it. Because first of all, they've got Collect on here, but then Sports Card Investor and Mantel. You've got that on there. But they're trying to make like a hub. And I'll leave a link in the description to it, but I'm also going to come back to that as well because I do want to touch on that. So it's a partnership here. I'll read you a couple of quick brief points. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description to this so you can check it out for yourself if you want to read it more extensively. So they announced a partnership to launch a destination, quote unquote, for comprehensive sports collectibles coverage. The website is going to feature a hub of written and video coverage produced by Cllct, and then also Sports Card Investor is going to put some stuff on it, and then they've got some other things on there. Now, of course, you got the standard quotes. We're thrilled to team up with 3 trusted voices in the hobby to create a one-stop shop for comprehensive collectibles content. You may make your jokes here. And looking at Cllct and looking at SCI and all the rest of it as well. But I think the key to this, though, is the whole thing about the hub. So let me quickly show you what the actual page looks like. I'm going to switch over to a different tab here. This is it. It's sports.yahoo.com/collectibles. I'll leave a link in the description for it if you want to check it out. It really is kind of what you would expect. It's a hub page that goes to a bunch of different articles, and a lot of the articles themselves are the kind of thing that you would expect on this kind of a hub. And the reason why I think it's more than anything of a nothing burger here is that unless you're somebody like me who occasionally is fishing around for potentially some interesting stories to talk about, either on a podcast or on a live stream, which is generally speaking what I'll do a little bit of skimming. This kind of harkens back, and that was the whole preamble that I gave. This harkens back to kind of the old school way of absorbing a lot of the information back then. When I thought of Yahoo and the way it was set up originally, it was kind of this front page. You would set up your browser so that automatically when you open up your browser, it would go to this front page, and then you'd have some news, but you'd also be able to then click on all these different categories and be able to go into it. And that was how Yahoo operated as kind of a home page for you. Well, today, I won't speak for you. I don't really have a homepage anymore. The homepage is basically just a Google prompt so that I can start typing in whatever I'm going to type in. And I've got some pages that I've got my bookmarks and all that, but I'll go to my different bookmarks depending on what it is. I don't really have a de facto homepage anymore. That's kind of a thing that has fallen by the wayside. But back then, if I think of 1995, 1996 into the early 2000s, that's exactly what I would have. Yahoo would have been something that would have been on a homepage for a very long time. But if you do go on here, basically what you end up with is articles that look a lot like what you'd expect here. MJ's game used jerseys, his 10 most important, so top 10 lists. Anticipation for Paige Becker's cards reaching an all-time high, so it is collectibles based. Pulled by New Era, Rangers overlap hat, sold for $1,000 on eBay. Are you going to be reading these articles? I probably doubt it, to be honest with you, but it is possible, I suppose. But I guess you're going to be skimming. And here's kind of where Sports Card Investors' angle is on this. And we're still trying to determine a little bit. It looks like it's being hosted here. You've got these articles that are like his top 5 hottest sports cards, the controversy behind the biggest card of all time. These are videos that you can find on his YouTube page right now. I believe, based on the way this is situated, I think they're actually putting some of these into separate hosting here on the Yahoo page. So actually, let's click on one here just to see. Since I'm sharing the screen, I can see here. So obviously, you've got the front page here, and you've got it. It looks like it's being hosted or at least embedded onto this page. And of course, you got to have an ad. That's regardless of the point, though, whether it's being hosted or not, it looks like it's being hosted to me on the Yahoo server itself, which is fine because, like I said, for Jeff Wilson and Sports Card Investor, it's a no-lose situation because in reality, even if you don't get a lot of views, it's just some additional views that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Because you're more than likely, if you're paying attention to Sports Card Investor, you're probably subscribed to his YouTube channel. You're probably subscribed to his other YouTube channel, The Jeff Wilson Show. So more than likely, you're already in the ecosystem where you're getting his stuff anyway, or you're getting his newsletter or whatever. So the likelihood is this is not where you're going to be looking first to try to find any information. I understand it from Yahoo's perspective that you're trying to drive traffic to this homepage to show you those ads. If you've noticed those scrolling ads that have been going this whole time, that's basically where they try to generate a little bit of revenue out of this. And then you've got more articles on here, but some of these are ad articles like, how long does $500,000 last after age 65 in Canada? I'm sure that'll be very useful information for you. And then you've got articles interspersed in between, but it's pretty standard. It's 1,018,000 ads. And this is part and part why I say that this is not the way that people consume a lot of content these days. And that kind of leads me to the first question that I have. Obviously, I could ask the generic question and just say, well, would you ever even look at a homepage like this? But I think what I actually want to ask instead is, do you even read hobby collectible articles at this point? Even if you are interested in something. And this is the kind of the bigger point that I wanted to make with this. And I'll actually show you a different tab that I've got on here. Here is the SI Collectibles. Because Sports Illustrated also got into this a little while back and actually created their own section. And I think they did some stuff with Hobby News Daily, basically, I think is the folks that were helping them out with that. But it's the same kind of idea. Just take a look right here. 2025 Topps Baseball Series 1, the Shohei Ohtani cards that reign supreme. Same kind of thing. These are articles that are situated and focus on auctions, inside the hobby, Hobby 101, prospect watching, and Hobby News Daily. Yeah, so here it is right here. So you've got these articles that are specifically for the Sports Illustrated brand. And it is kind of funny in a way that you're looking at, kind of a legacy internet brand in Yahoo, trying to get into this. And here you're looking at a legacy sports media brand in Sports Illustrated, trying to get a foothold into the sports collectible space. And obviously, a lot of times when I make these videos, I'm looking at Hobby News Daily or I'm looking at articles from Sports Collectors Daily. And oftentimes you'll see me reference an article like that, and I'll say that I put the link in the description. The exact same thing that I'm doing with this one. All these sites that I'm showing you, I'm going to put the link in the description. But my question really is this. Even if you watch videos like this, the kind that I'm making here, and maybe you're interested in the topic or maybe you're not interested in the topic, in making the video, I'm giving you a synopsis, and maybe I'm giving you some analysis or my opinion or whatever the case may be for whatever that's worth. The point is, though, at the same time, I'm still offering the article available so that you can read it yourself, come do your own interpretation. And I guess my question really comes down to this. In that scenario where you're getting the synopsis, do you ever even click on the article? Question mark. The reason I'm wondering and I'm asking is because they're hoping and they're banking on the idea that they can still get people to look at kind of a legacy, the written article and have kind of a hub as a spot to have kind of media, journalism, articles, these kind of things. Is anyone actually reading this other than people who potentially are going to then create a synopsis and make a video? Is this basically designed for anybody except me and people that are doing the kind of thing that I'm doing? And I don't even do it all the time, but I'm saying even in cases like this, if I'm going to do it and I click on one of these, obviously I could do the video, I could show you the screen here and read a couple of things off of it. And then at every single occasion, at least for me personally, I only speak for myself, I can then give you the article and you could sit down and read the whole thing in your own time. I guess my question, as I said earlier, is how many of you are actually doing that? How many of you are actually going in and taking advantage of that article and then reading that in full? Or are you satisfied with the synopsis and maybe any kind of angle or opinion that we throw out there? I think my overall takeaway for my kind of line of thinking on that is that I think as consumers, for the limited time that we have now, I think the majority of us, if we care enough to do that, I think we're seeking out things like YouTube videos, podcast episodes, or even things like Instagram Reels. We're getting our information and our kind of connection to these things from these little snippets that you can digest quickly, because a lot of people don't really seem intent or interested in kind of sitting down and reading a whole article and analyzing it. And it's not like these articles are super long and impactful. Like even the example that I gave you at the very beginning that kind of outlines this new partnership is not very long. At the very bottom, it's all, then we end up in the about part. There's really not that much meat to this bone as far as an article is concerned. It's basically a press release. That's all it really is that you're looking at. And then the hubs are just taken to these little articles. Most of these articles you could probably read in about 5 minutes or less. The question is, are you even taking the 5 minutes, or are you looking at a 90-second Instagram reel? And that's kind of what I'm wondering, is that realistically, I don't feel like a lot of people are even going into it. I feel like they're doing this maybe 10, 15, 20 years late. This is something that maybe would have been something really incredible somewhere in the early 2000s or the late 90s, because this is the kind of thing that people were looking for back then. They were looking for a hub that could then connect you to articles and different pieces of information you might want. Is there still a place for it? Sure. But I just think the audience has moved away from it. I think they've moved more towards kind of, if you talk about it in the sports landscape, you talk about new media versus old media. Old media was your newspapers. It was, kind of your ESPN talking head shows. There's still some audience for that, but a lot of it has shifted over to podcasts, whether they be spearheaded by athletes or whether they be really niched down. So, for example, if I'm a big fan of a team, the likelihood is I'm probably not going to watch ESPN or TSN in Canada. The likelihood is I'm probably going to follow a podcast that specifically targets and talks about the sport or the team that I follow, because they're going to give me coverage that is specifically focused on that. And the likelihood is they're going to be the ones that are going to be reading these articles and then giving me the information. That's why I just kind of think it's funny that these two kind of different types of legacy brands are leaning into this in the year 2025. Where it might have been better served for them to be into this in the year 2005. Anyway, at this point, I'm just kind of going around in circles. Really, what I wanted to talk about is I just thought it was interesting that that Yahoo Sports decided to try to get into this now at this stage of the game, and then Sports Illustrated, obviously, in the example I'm showing you here, also has been trying to get into this. And I'm just curious how successful this is, all things considered. Just scrolling through, you can see here some information, but it's stuff that you can get now. Like even looking here, 3 affordable Ovechkin rookie card options, wonderful. Daniel Jones' impact on Anthony Richardson card market. All right, I guess. The Philly card show was flying high after Eagles Super Bowl win. Are you clicking on these? Are you reading them? I don't know. I don't know if anyone is specifically doing that. Well, obviously somebody is, but I'm guessing just the audience comparatively to a Neo Cards and Comics video, a Sports Card Dad video, or even to a lesser degree, the videos that I'll make talking about some of these things, not specifically these, but just an article or something related to something that might catch my eye or catch my interest. Do you actually just listen to the video and then that's it? That's the end of your connection to the specific topic. Or do you actually do a deep dive on some of these? So somebody listening, I'd be kind of curious what your take is on that. And then also, is it a little bit too, is it about 20 years too late for them to be trying to do this hub? And actually, one more question I've got for you before I leave you. And that's just this. Do you even have a homepage set up with your browser? Like if you open up your browser, Chrome, Safari, Microsoft, Internet Explorer. Well, I guess it's not Internet Explorer. It's Microsoft Edge now. Regardless, I'm using a Mac most of the time, so I don't use that anymore. But I think it's Edge. But anyway, regardless of what your browser is, do you actually have a homepage? And is the homepage like news or anything like that? Is it something you actually go in and read stuff off of, or is it just? Are you going straight to a search engine? Does it go straight to Google? And is that how you start off your homepage when you open up your browser? I'm just kind of curious because I'm just wondering if there's still a place for a homepage style setup and design in 2025. Is that something that people are specifically looking for at this point? Or is it just something that is very niche and broken down for people that are going to have a very specific use case for it? Anyway, that's it. An excuse to try out a new microphone and talk about something that most people aren't really going to care about that much, but I figured I would have a little bit of fun with it since it kind of led me down this rabbit hole of looking into this. And to be honest, I hadn't even looked at the SI Collectibles. I remembered hearing about it. So it wasn't until today that I decided to go and scan through. So maybe that's an indicator for me. I've kind of answered my own question, but I am still curious if any of you have even looked at any of these things. Regardless, I will leave a link in the description for you for all of these if you are curious and want to go down that rabbit hole and take a closer look. And again, do let me know if you ever do read any of the articles. Do you actually check any of those links? I'm just curious what percentage of you, if any, actually ever look at them, or do you just take the synopsis and just run with it from there? That said, more videos coming up on the channel, live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we've got the longest running episodic, whatever it is. We're going to talk some more silliness and nonsense. We'll have a little bit of fun with that. I did get some cards in today, actually, in the mail, so probably I'll have a mail day video at some point this week. It'll probably be closer to the weekend, so we'll do that. I don't think anything else is coming in, but regardless, I was able to get a couple of cards. And as I said, all the links to everything else that I do are also in the description. With all that said, like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.